What up, guys? JT Anime Nerd here, bringing you all that nerdy goodness. Today, we continue with my version of DC Snyderverse with my revision of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. Now, one of the reasons this is getting more of a revision than a simple rewrite is because, for one thing, Lex Luthor is going to be portrayed by Vincent D'Onofrio in this version, who has to have a more serious tone than Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal did. Also, I honestly think Lex needed to be older. Sorry, Zach, that's one of the few bad choices I think were made for the Snyderverse. Not that I didn't think Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor wasn't entertaining. I thought it was pretty entertaining, but Lex Luthor to me just didn't feel like it fit for him. It's also going to be because of the differences I have to put it in for Vincent into Lex Luthor that I plan on having this is be a summary of a whole story due to the fact that it would take longer than a whole week to write up a full script with dialogue all going. And I have a two videos per week deadline. With all that out of the way, let's get into the story. The story begins with the funeral of Martha and Thomas Wayne, the parents of Bruce Wayne, who is just a little kid at this point. Bruce runs away from Alfred, distraught at losing his parents, not being able to take the grief. We then get a flashback of Bruce, Thomas, and Martha leaving the theater together, seemingly happy. Back in the present, Bruce continues to run through the woods, with the flashback returning to the moment Bruce and his parents were held up at gunpoint by none other than Jack Oswald White, who would one day be known as the Joker, the clown prince of crime. As Bruce continues running through the woods, the flashback then shows Thomas Wayne attempting to save his wife and son, only for Jack to fire on the instinct of fear. Bruce in the present then falls into a boarded up hole, with the flashback then showing Martha attempting to defend Bruce from the gunman, only for Jack to pull the trigger by accident due to the struggle. As Bruce in the present falls to the bottom of the cave, the flashback shows Bruce yelling in sorrow at the death of his mother, with Jack running with an expression of sorrow and fear at what he had done. Thomas Wayne would reach out to his wife, uttering his last words, "Martha," as the life from her eyes die out and pieces of her pearl necklace fall into the sewer. Back in the present, Bruce awakens to find a cave filled with countless bats. The bats then react to Bruce's presence and circle around him, seemingly lifting him up back to the surface, through the hole he fell through. It was from then on Bruce knew what he had to be: fear itself. Many years later, during the invasion of General Zod, Bruce Wayne would go to Metropolis and contact a man, coincidentally named Jack, to evacuate the building he's in. Meanwhile, Bruce is driving amongst the chaos, debris falling everywhere as he drives to the building his colleagues remain in until Bruce encounters a crowd of people. Bruce exits the car, witnessing the actions of the destruction of the World Engine as the ship Lois and company were on go straight into it, causing an implosion. Meanwhile, Superman and Zod's battle enter the building Bruce's colleague Jack is in. Bruce turns a corner, trying to contact Jack, but witnesses Zod's heat vision destroy the building. Jack then begins to pray as the building comes down on him, killing him in the process. Bruce attempts to run toward the building, despite its destruction. As Bruce roams through the smoke of the building's collapse, he witnesses the casualties of Superman's battle with Zod, encountering an employee of his named Wallace, whose legs have been permanently shattered by fallen debris. Bruce and others help Wallace, but then Bruce acts to save a little girl from more falling debris. Bruce then asks the girl where her mother is, to which the girl just points at the building Zod just destroyed. As Bruce embraces the little girl to comfort her, he then sees Superman and Zod falling toward the train station, with nothing but hatred for Superman in his eyes, forever blaming Superman for the almost imminent destruction of Metropolis. 18 months later, a group of divers in the Indian Ocean dive down to pull out a kind of rock, or meteorite of some sort. The divers bring the rock to a seemingly American man, who then breaks the rock, revealing a kind of green crystal inside of it. Meanwhile, in Nairobi, Africa, Lois Lane meets up with a photographer named Steve Lombard, being there to meet a man named Amajog. Lois and Steve are then transported, taken blindfolded to a secret location where Amajog will meet them, who's accompanied by a man named Anatoly Kinyazev, codenamed KG Beast. Lois interviews Amajag, but KG Beast then decides to break apart Steve's camera due to his suspicion of him, which proves correct due to him finding a tracer in the camera, with KG Beast revealing to Amajag that it's a CIA device and that they're tracking them. Lois pleads her and Steve's innocence to Amajag, but Steve Lombard reveals that he simply used Lois's credentials as a cover. Steve then tells Amajag that he's been authorized to propose an arrangement, but Amajag then shoots Steve dead, not wanting any arrangement. CIA then orders a team they've set up in Africa to stand down while a drone attempts to attack, but the team deny to follow the orders due to civilian casualties. Lois continues to plead her innocence to Amajag. However, KG Beast then looks around as if he's expecting something. He then kills all of Amajag's men, catching Amajag's attention. Believing this to be a rescue, Amajag takes Lois hostage, with KG Beast and his men destroying the army's weapons and mysteriously burning the bodies for some reason. KG Beast and his team then leave to escape, saying to hurry and stating that someone's coming. Meanwhile, the CIA launches their drone strike, ready to kill their enemy despite the casualties. Suddenly, a mysterious figure destroys the missile the drone launched and the drone alongside it, leaving KG Beast with a smile as he escapes. Just then, Superman arrives with Amajag using Lois as a hostage. However, Amajag underestimates Superman's speed, as Superman swiftly grabs Amajag through the wall behind Lois, seemingly beating him without killing him, as is Superman's MO. The team sent by the CIA then enters the village, only to find the burnt bodies of the people that KGB East and his men killed, with Lois alive and well. Back in the U.S., a woman from the village describes the scene of what happened to a woman named Senator Finch, stating that Superman killed the people in her village, seemingly lying in order to turn the world against Superman. Finch states that the committee holds Superman responsible for what happened at the village, with the pleading woman stating that Superman answers to no one, not even in God. Meanwhile, in Gotham City, as two officers are watching a football game, they get a report about a disturbance at a lone house. The officers investigate, where they find a batarang stabbed into the wall. The officers enter the basement, only to find a cage filled with women, revealing them to be victims of human trafficking. The officers try to let the girls out, but they refuse to come out due to their fear of Batman, as he's still dealing with the remaining traffickers. The officers hear the yell of a trafficker and so head back upstairs, hearing more yells from those being attacked by Batman. Just then, the officer finds the only trafficker left chained up to the heater. The officer then turns around to see Batman hanging from the ceiling, shooting him out of instinctual fear, leading Batman to escape. The officer's partner arrives and both look at the trafficker, noticing that he has a brand in the shape of a bat symbol, seemingly knowing what that means. Lois returns to her apartment and tidies up, but when she finds a shirt with blood on it, she begins to feel worried for Clark. Lois then grabs a book she found on presumably Steve's body and pulls out what appears to be some sort of bullet. Moments later, Lois is in the bathtub and Clark arrives, with Lois talking to Clark about being blamed for what happened, with Clark not caring what people think as long as Lois is safe and he stays true to who he is. All the while, Lois wants to understand what truly happened back in Africa. Meanwhile, Bruce returns to the Batcave, with Alfred working on Batman's mask. Bruce and Alfred then discuss KG Beast, as well as discuss Batman's new morally corrupt sense of justice and Superman. Alfred making it clear that the world has changed because of Superman's existence. At a company called LexCorp, Senator Finch meets with Lex Luthor, played by Vincent D'Onofrio, accompanied by Eve Tessmacher, his secretary, and Otis, his intern. Luthor presents the green mineral that was once a piece of the world engine over the Indian Ocean. Otis would then turn on a monitor, revealing that the government is in possession of the body of General Zod, as well as explain the mineral itself and reveal that it possesses the ability to break Kryptonian skin. Luthor then reveals the sample he found in the Indian Ocean and requests Finch to give him an import license to bring it to LexCorp. Finch questions the idea of weaponizing what would later be known as kryptonite to which X would explain in a convincing monologue that he wishes to protect humanity from false gods, revealing what many call the metahuman thesis, a thesis that supports the existence of other superpowered beings. Lex then goes on a small rant about how humanity has relied too much on Superman, to which it's become unprepared should he ever turn against the world, and so makes his case as to using kryptonite against any more Kryptonian invaders instead of relying on any other metahumans. Reluctantly, Finch seems to agree, but in exchange, Lex wishes to have unbridled access to the Kryptonian ship and Zod's body for testing. It's shown in slight flash forwards that Lex Luthor used kryptonite to cut a fingerprint from Zod's body so he can access the ship, as well as later enter the site where the ship is being kept. Back at Lois and Clark's apartment, Clark sees an interview with the pleading woman, making Superman look more like the villain every day. Meanwhile, Wallace, from the Metropolis incident, is shown with articles all about Superman and in his home, as well as places a photo of his wife and daughter in front of a memorial listing. He then decides to climb and vandalize a newly made statue of Superman, commemorating his fight against the invading Kryptonians. At the Daily Planet, everyone sees the news report of Wallace getting arrested for vandalizing Superman's statue, branding Superman a false god, as is written on the statue's chest. This news report making everyone, including Clark, Lois, and Jimmy, petrified. Moments later, Clark heads over to Gotham in order to meet with the pleading woman and interview her about Superman. While he gains no knowledge on the pleading woman's whereabouts, he speaks to someone who warns him about the Batman, who's been marking people in order for them to be killed in Gotham Prison. Meanwhile, Bruce is attending an underground street fight where KG Beast is attending. Bruce then speaks to KG Beast, with KG unaware that Bruce is hacking his phone with his own phone. Back at the Daily Planet, Clark tries to convince Perry to run a story about how Gotham's Batman is treating crime, but Perry shrugs it off as a boring story due to Gotham's common reputation of crime being on the daily. Lois then enters the room and presents the bullet she found to Perry, claiming it to be supplied to the enemy to the rebels by the government themselves, giving Lois a chance to chase the story by going to Washington, D.C. Perry then tells Clark to be at a benefit for the library in Metropolis, revealing that someone on the committee requested Clark Kent specifically. Meanwhile, Finch meets with Lex Luthor at his house to tell him that she's denying the import license to bring the kryptonite to LexCorp, as she doesn't like the idea of weaponizing it, as well as have suspicions about Lex's intentions with it. Lex then points out to a painting on his father's mantle, one depicting angels coming from the sky and demons coming from beneath the earth, revealing that it should be the other way around, that devils come from the sky. Back at the Wayne estate, Bruce visits his parents' graves, only to then be haunted by an image of blood coming from their mausoleum, only followed by what looks like an image of Man-Bat to appear before him and try to bite his neck. However, Bruce wakes up to find that it was all a dream, or perhaps a premonition. The next day, Bruce reveals to Alfred that what he found on KG Beast's phone was proof to a connection with Lex Luthor. Alfred then presents Bruce with an invitation to Lex Luthor's house, who is revealed to be the proprietor at the gala for the Library of Metropolis. Moments later, Bruce looks at his suit, showing eyes of hatred at it. Bruce then approaches what looks to be the suit of the late Robin, with the Joker's laughter echoing in the background. Robin's suit is spray painted with the following: "Ha ha ha! Joke's on you, Batman." Bruce then attends the gala, where Clark Kent would take notice. Miss Tessmacher then presents Lex Luthor at the gala. Meanwhile, Bruce spots a particular-looking woman in a dark red dress. Bruce then talks to Alfred via comlink and tries to find his way downstairs into the server room. Bruce has little choice but to return to the party, where he would end up meeting Clark Kent. Both Clark and Bruce share conflicting opinions about Superman and Batman, to which Lex Luthor interrupts. Meanwhile, the data transfer of Lex's data from his servers is complete, to which Bruce would attempt to get it back. However, Bruce would come to find that the device he used to steal the data had been stolen from the Lady in Red. Bruce would give chase, but would be too late as she left left in a car. Meanwhile, Clark sees a report about a fire, to which he acts with haste. Moments later, Superman saves a little girl from the fire, to which people around him, who seem to be celebrating Day of the Dead, treat him like a god as they place their hands on him simultaneously. As Superman continues aiding the world in terms of natural disasters, the world begins to question his existence, what he stands for, and what he should be doing. The world is beginning to act as Jonathan Kent expected, as people with no understanding of Clark and what his existence represents. While Clark confides in his mother about his predicament, Lois gets the bullets examined, revealing that the metal isn't known, and theorizes that the rebels in Africa could have been used as test subjects for the bullets. Clark would then research about the bat brands, finding out that whoever has the brand is killed by the inmate. It's in it's in the prisons the criminals with the brands end up in. Meanwhile, the trafficker with the bat brand is brought into Metropolis Prison, while Wallace is set free thanks to the influence of Lex Luthor, who approaches him with a proposition. The next day, Wallace meets with Senator Finch, wanting to share his story. Back at Metropolis Prison, the trafficker ultimately gets killed for having the bat brand, just like he feared. Lois then goes to General Swanwick, who sadly believes that while Superman might not have killed someone, is directly responsible for what happened in Africa and blames Lois as well. Perry then confronts Clark on chasing the Batman story and tells him to drop it. Meanwhile, at a fancy event, Bruce confronts the woman in red from Lex's gala. The woman reveals that Lex has a photo that belongs to her, which is why she stole Bruce's device. Despite their tension, there is a bit of charm in their conversation. Back at the Batcave, Bruce begins decrypting the data, which is showing that it's going to take a long while before it's done. Meanwhile, in some distant future, a post-apocalyptic Batman is seen exiting a bunker and looks on to witness an Omega symbol on the distant ground in front of a destroyed city. Whether it's Gotham or Metropolis, it doesn't seem to matter. Batman then notices an armored school bus in the distance, with armed gunners inside. Batman then meets up with the survivors, only to reveal that they have kryptonite. However, Batman would then open the crate to reveal that there is nothing in it, and that it was a trap set up by the gunners in order to survive. Just then, soldiers brandishing the Superman symbol like a police officer patch reveal themselves, holding Batman at gunpoint. The soldiers then kill the survivors, leading Batman to act. After the fight, groups of demonic bug-like soldiers appear to aid the Superman soldiers and capture Batman. Moments later, Batman would be imprisoned in a bunker, and Superman would appear, with the Superman soldiers bowing to him. Superman then approaches Batman, kills the remaining survivors, and unmasks him, stating that she, seemingly Lois, was his world and that Bruce took her from him. Superman then pushes his hand into Batman, seemingly killing him. However, Bruce would wake up, but witness the appearance of a young man in reddish armor, surrounded by a portal of lightning and energy, stating that Lois is the key, but asks if he's too early. The last thing the person in red says is that Bruce has to fear Superman and find them. Bruce wakes up for real this time, finding that the data is finally decrypted. Meanwhile, Clark begins investigating Batman's latest victim, the trafficker who was killed. Bruce then discovers that the White Portuguese, a name that Bruce learned while investigating KG Beast, is the name of a ship. Bruce then tells Alfred that the ship is carrying none other than kryptonite, the only weapon that can kill Superman. Alfred tries to reason with Bruce to not use the kryptonite against Superman and convince him that Superman is not the enemy. But Bruce's fear gets the better of him, and it falls on deaf ears. Alfred then tells Bruce that Batman used to stand for something in Gotham as much as Superman stands for something in Metropolis, and that Selina believed that. However, Bruce retaliates by stating that she was wrong on the moment he lost someone that meant more to him than she did. Not wanting to have any part in the death of Superman, Alfred refuses to help Bruce with this one, with Bruce stating that he'll do it on his own. Clark then goes to the prison in order to learn about the trafficker, whose name is Santos. Clark then meets his girlfriend, who doesn't condone his actions, but states that he was still a father who didn't deserve to die, revealing that Gotham and Metropolis prisons let the Batman decide who lives and who dies. Back at the Daily Planet, Perry tries to confront Clark, but Clark is nowhere to be found. At the docks of Metropolis or Gotham, I honestly don't know which, Batman makes his attempt to steal the kryptonite from KG Beast and his men. Batman places a tracer on the cargo truck in order to chase it down in his Batmobile. Just as Batman gets close to the cargo truck, Superman confronts and intercepts him, breaking his Batmobile in the process. The two look at each other face to face. Superman then warns Batman not to answer his bat signal anymore, and to bury the Batman. Batman then asks Superman if he bleeds, to which Superman just flies away in response. But then Batman states, "You will." Batman returns to the Batcave, where he then locates the cargo truck where they place the kryptonite, at, X-Corp Research Park. That night, Lois meets up with General Swanwick again, who decides to look into the origin of the bullet she found. Meanwhile, Senator Finch invites Superman to a council to discuss his supposed actions in the desert via news conference. Clark once again confides in his mother, who encourages Clark to be a beacon the beacon he was meant to be, to a world that he doesn't owe anything to. In the streets of Gotham, the pleading woman then notices KG Beast and his men at the front of her home, to which she decides to find Senator Finch and tell her the truth, which was that she was lying about Superman's involvement in what happened in Africa. Lois and Swanwick then meet up again, with Swanwick revealing that LexCorp developed the bullet, and reveals that it was a ploy to ambush Superman. Lois then realizes that she was the bait for him. Wallace is then interviewed by the news and tries to turn the public against Superman, convinced that the invasion was his fault. Meanwhile, Bruce is witnessing the event live on his television, and Lois is attempting to have Perry run the true story about Superman being framed. Back at City Hall, Finch gets ready for the meeting, but is intercepted by Lex Luthor. Bruce then finds out that Wallace hasn't been receiving victim checks, to which Bruce is given with writings to Bruce. Clark's mother also witnesses the event live on TV from the diner she works at. At a train station, the pleading woman is pushed into a moving train by KG Beast in order to get rid of any loose ends for Lex. Meanwhile, Lois arrives at City Hall, while Superman also arrives to quell the fears of the people. As the conference begins and Superman stands before the people, Finch stands against Superman's unconsented actions. However, Finch then notices that Lex's chair is vacant, not attending the council, making her realize that something's wrong. Just then, a bomb from Wallace's new wheelchair given to him by Lex Luthor goes off and kills almost everyone inside the building. As Bruce looks upon this event, Bruce then looks at a newspaper article about the invasion at Metropolis, with Wallace having seemingly written he let his family die. This also revealing that at the building that was destroyed in Metropolis was Wayne Towers. This event making Bruce believe that Superman is solely irresponsible for what just happened. As Lois enters the scene, Superman helps evacuate the survivors, but looks at the dead he failed to save. Superman then decides to fly off in despair. Alfred arrives at Bruce's penthouse, only to discover what happened at the Senate meeting. That night, Lex Luthor arrives at LexCorp, only to discover from security recording that Batman stole the kryptonite deposit and replaced it with Batarang, with him realizing that Batman is out to kill Superman. Superman then meets up with Lois, believing that Superman is just a dream on Earth, and that he is no symbol. But Lois tries to convince him otherwise, to sadly no avail. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor uses Zod's fingerprints to enter the Kryptonian ship's command center, as it's flooded with alien liquids. Lex then inserts the Kryptonian key into the console, allowing him to gain access to and full control of the Kryptonian ship. As Bruce is training and preparing the kryptonite spear for his upcoming battle with Superman, Bruce discovers the kind of data Lex Luthor had stored in his servers. Bruce would find pictures and recordings of the woman in red, as well as an old picture of her from World War I. but as a warrior-looking woman wearing a type of tiara. Back at the Kryptonian ship, Lex brings in the body of General Zod, followed by Lex placing his own blood onto the body. Lex then has the computer meld his DNA with Zod's DNA, beginning the mutation of Zod's body into something that the Council of Krypton deems a deformity so hateful to sight and memory. Meanwhile, the world continues to find ways of blaming Superman for the incident at the Senate, with his supporters looking at the news in horror. And with that, we come to the conclusion of part 1 of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and put down in the comment section below on what you guys liked or didn't like about this rewrite. Also, be sure to check out my merch store on Etsy.com. The link will be in the description below and in the pinned comment and below. Oh, with all that said and done, I'm JT Anime. I'll check you guys later, and hashtag restore the Snyderverse.